Hello YouTube. Today I'm making an Artificer semi-guide. It's not a full guide, it's more of a item sets and synergies kind of build setup, more of like a loadout video. I'm not doing like a bunch, I'm doing one that works for me and I feel like it could work for a lot of people because it's heavy damage and good for escape, so it's not like a do a bunch of damage and then die and wait for your teammates to finish the portal. Like it's not a team requiring build. It's actually kind of good for solo. So I'll just dive right into it then and enjoy. So before I get into the actual item sets and the play styles and all that stuff, I wanted to just give you a quick couple tips because you're going to see in a lot of Artificer guides that they're going to say use the flamethrower over the ion surge, and that's ultimately the wrong idea because although you'll have good boss damage and good crowd control damage, where's your movement? Items make you stronger, but if you're using them all for your movement, how are you going to be any good? So after playing Artificer for a good while, and partially on Rainstorm because I'm kind of bad at this game, I've noticed that with Ion Surge, although it's lower damage, it's only 800%, you don't really have a need for too many movement items because Artificer isn't supposed to be fast, she's just supposed to be nimble. She can escape attacks, but not necessarily flee from them. So you may be curious, where is your damage coming from if you're not using the flamethrower? And I know the primary isn't really the greatest past like stage 2, 3 on Monsoon, sometimes even Rainstorm. It doesn't meet the needs for you. Like you need more damage. And that's where the flamethrower is utilized, is past stage 2 and 3. It's kind of more needed. But the items I'm going to show you guys in the later part of the video will actually make your primary kind of excessive almost. Like you'll feel like you're playing the Artifact of Glass. Everything just kind of crumbles in front of you after one shot. So where would the need be for the flamethrower then if your primary is good enough? You don't need to waste items on movement if you can use movement at the cost of an attack that would kind of be obsolete. And that really wraps it up for my first tip, is why use the flamethrower when the ion surge is great for mobility, decent for damage, and it kind of just pays off better with your item usage. My second and final tip for you guys is to just avoid the icicle, spear, whatever it is. It's not worth it. I mean, especially with the trade-off from the nano bomb. It's just, you're trading crowd control, high damage, easy to use, for accurate precision, taking your time, less damage. I probably sound like a false prophet from another planet right now because, oh my gosh, he's saying you can't stunlock Mithrix. Like, yes, I understand. The icicle can stunlock most enemies, aside from bosses, obviously, and it can stunlock Mithrix. But you're trading off a lot of good damage, and you have to be so precise with it that you're just wasting your time, especially if you're playing in Monsoon. I know I sound like a total idiot the more I talk to you guys, but I mean, really, with the time I have under my belt playing Artificer, I've noticed it's only good for learning the ropes. Icicle isn't that great. You're just getting a second snap freeze that you can throw farther. That's all it is. Again, it's ultimately your decision in the end. That's just from my experience playing the Artificer. I don't find it any more useful than the snap freeze. In fact, I find it less useful. So that wraps up my tips for the Artificer, and I'll jump into the actual item sets now. So the combo item set is one that you've definitely heard about before from plenty of other YouTubers. I just wanted to throw it into this loadout because it's significantly better with the Artificer specifically, and that is gasoline and ignition tanks. Let's start with gasoline. It's safe to assume that you haven't heard the official stats for gasoline because usually you just pick it up and you read, killing an enemy ignites other nearby enemies. Okay, that sounds cool. Not on my top tiers. Like, I'd rather get a bungus or something, you know? I'll read the exact for you. Killing an enemy ignites all enemies within a 12-meter radius for 150% base damage. Additionally, enemies burn for 150% per base damage. When you stack this, your radius goes up 4 meters, and your burn damage goes up 75% per. This is exceptionally useful for the Artificer because, well, obviously, Her primary attack is fire, and if you end up using the flamethrower, then so is that, which is nice, because then you're getting burn ticks already on top of your gasoline. That's like 60% more bullet per bullet. For the second part of the synergy, you need the Survivors of the Void DLC for, but I feel like a very vast majority of Risk of Rain 2 players already own DLC. It's usually bundled together, or you need it, because Risk of Rain is awesome, and who doesn't want a DLC? So this item I mentioned earlier is the Ignition Tank, and when you pick up the Ignition Tank it says, your Ignite effects deal quadruple damage. That sounds pretty cool, but you've got priorities with your green items, and it's not the Ignition Tank. However, the specifics say, Ignite effects deal plus 300% more damage over time, and when you stack this, it's identical, which means plus 300% each stack. So when you put this combo into practice using the gasoline and the Ignition Tank, it creates kind of a chain effect, and this only gets better with stacking. Because when you say there's a horde of beetles, when I shoot at one beetle, he's going to create a big giant radius of burning, and that burning is going to be even more because of my Ignition Tank. But then if more enemies get closer to them, when they die, they create another burning radius, and so on and so on. So this can go forever essentially if you have perfectly timed enemies, and ultimately it's just good for crowd control. On top of this, the single target damage is still really good, and if you aren't confident in that, you can always just add crowbars, or if you're really lucky, you can add some polyloots, and you're golden. Now for healing items, I generally only use Cautious Slugs because flying away counts as out of danger, obviously, so I'm healing nice. Sometimes I'll have a Weeping Fungus on me, but not all the time. I mean, you can't really pick the items you play with, so it just depends. But I've cycled on Monsoon with 2 medkits, 4 slugs, and sometimes the antlers, but that doesn't even make a huge change. Like, as long as you can confidently escape, you can heal. So to wrap things up, this video is coming to a close. This build only requires gasoline, ignition tanks, a few healing items that even you're confident in, not even specifically Cautious Slugs. And the best part is sky's the limit with modulation. You can add whatever you want to this. You can take items out, add items. The synergy only is a bonus. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I tried to put a little bit more work into this to make it more YouTube user friendly and to show that I care. I try to upload frequently. I'm at 2 different houses, one of which doesn't have my computer, so I can't obviously edit. So just trying to understand. I'm gonna start working on making better, higher quality videos, so you might see maybe 1 or 2 a week at the most. But again, thank you for watching. So
peace, y'all.